What's up, everyone? It is Wednesday, May 24th. We are getting ready to go play some poker. Just trying to decide where we're going to go play poker. Few options. I'm looking at the Wynn, Resorts World, or South Point. So I'm not sure where we're going to end up, but we are going to end up at one of those three locations. And we're going to get in some hands today. We're going to play some poker, grind it out for a bit, and see if we can't win some of our losses back from the last session. So that's the goal. I got my coffee here right now, my iced coffee, and I'm sitting in the parking lot. Don't worry, I'm safe. I'm not driving. Episode 5. Let's see if we can make this a winning episode for all of you fine folks out there in the YouTube land. Looking forward to playing some cards. Let's see where we end up. All right, we sit down at a brand new 1-3 table. First hand we pick up is Ace-10 offsuit on the button. We go ahead and raise this up to $15. There's a lot of confusion going on at the table. Players have just sat down and don't have their chips. The dealer's explaining how much they have behind. He's also explaining to line up the seats. So once he explains what everybody's playing and how much they have behind, the 7th seat eventually decides to fold his hand here. It takes him a few seconds to make that decision. And we do get called by the 5 seat, we get called by the 9 seat and the 1 seat. So we end up going 4 ways to a flop here. Flop comes down 10-8-6 with 2 diamonds. So we end up flopping top pair, top kicker in a multi-way pot.
I think the best play here is to always keep betting. There are a ton of flush draws, straight draws, and worse tens that will call our bet. So I put in a half pot size bet here of $30, and we indeed end up getting two callers. The 9 seat puts in the call, and the 1 seat goes ahead and puts in the call as well. So we're going three ways to a turn, and the turn does indeed help us out here. It is the ace of spades, giving us top two pair. Again, I think the right thing to do here when it checks to us is just to keep betting for value. I think there are still a ton of hands that can call. I think the mistake that I make here is I make it too big. I go about a pot size. I put out $100. I think if I would have made this maybe about 70, 75, I might have got one caller here. But as played, we end up winning this $220 pot. All right, this time we have ace 10 suited. We are in early-ish position. Under the gun plus one decides to raise this up to $12. I put in a call for the $12. The cutoff calls 12 and the button calls 12. So we end up going four ways to a flop here. And the flop comes down ace 6-4 with two clubs. So we have two overs. We've got the nut flush draw. It goes check, check, check on the flop, and then the button decides to put in a $25 bet. Under the gun plus one gets out of the way. I call, cutoff folds. We go to a turn, which is the 8 of diamonds. I think this makes it less likely that he holds an 8. He probably has a lot of worse flush draws in his range here. So when he makes it $30, I think for a bit here and decide that the best play is try to get this pot a little bit larger so that when we connect on the river, we can get paid off. I put in a bet here of $85, raising him up. Now, what I didn't look at closely enough was stack sizes. If he makes this call, he's only going to have roughly $30-ish behind. Probably should just be putting him all in here if that's the case. So a little bit of a mistake on my side and not paying attention to effective stack sizes. As played, he does make this call, and we end up going to a river. River is the ace of diamonds, so we hit our top pair. I put him all in. He folds pretty much immediately, confirming that he did have a missed flush draw here, and we probably had the best hand the whole way. As played, though, we end up winning this $256 pot. Okay, I put this one in here just more for fun and confirming that sometimes your live reads are spot on. So the gentleman to my right raises this up to $20. I go ahead and call the $20 with pocket eights, and we end up going to a flop heads up here. The flop was all low cards. I don't remember exactly what it was. I think it was 7 deuce 6. We end up with an overpair here, but I just had a very strong read that this gentleman here on my right had a better pair. He made some comments pre-flop, and he does indeed show us the pocket jack. So shout out to you, Jason. Fun playing with you. Thanks for being a good sport while we vlogged. Sometimes the realities of live poker can be really frustrating. Our table had been fairly active, and we had been fairly card dead leading up to this. So when we look down at Queen Queen in the big blind, we're excited to play a pot. Folds around to the small blind, who announces chop. I reluctantly turn over my pocket queens, agreeing to the chop. The table then debates for a bit as to whether or not you should honor this agreement in this spot or if you should play your premium holdings. I think the proper thing to do there is just to continue to honor the chop. If that's what you've been doing all night, you should just continue to do so. Curious what the audience thinks. Leave it in the comments. Should you chop here or should you look to play your premium hands? We pick up Queen Jack offsuit here on the button. When it folds to the cutoff, they raise to $12. We decide to put in the $12 call in position. Big blind calls as well. We end up going three ways to a flop, which is Jack 10-9 with two diamonds. We flop top pair here with a good kicker on a very dynamic board. When the cutoff decides to continuation bet here for $20, I think the best play is to just call. I think raising might be an overplay. Big blind gets out of the way. We end up going to a turn of Jack of clubs. We're heads up now. Cutoff slows down here and decides to check. I weigh over my options here. I think we can get value from flush draws, straight draws, potentially a worse jack, although there aren't too many of those out there. I put in a value bet of $45 here on the turn, and the cutoff doesn't think too long here before making this call. I pick up a little bit of a read here that they may already have a made hand in this spot. So I'm playing a little cautiously, going to the river, which is the 7 of diamonds, brings in the front door flush. The cutoff checks to us here. I think about this one for a bit, thinking whether or not I can continue to get value from my 3 of a kind. Ultimately, I think the answer is no, and I decide that the best play here is just to check back. I turn my cards over. The cutoff lets out a very loud audible sigh and turns over king queen, showing that he flopped the straight. So unfortunate for him, he didn't get any more value from that flop straight. We end up losing this pot. Next hand, we have Jack 10 of diamonds on the button. We get an early position raise to $13. I call the $13 raise here. We end up going heads up to a flop, which is a very good flop for our particular holding. We see ace, jack, 7 with 2 diamonds. We have middle pair with a flush draw. Original raiser decides to check here. I check this back and we go to the 10 of spades on the turn, giving us 2 pair. I decide to bet now when the player checks to me. I put out a wager of $16. They quickly call this $16 bet. And when we see the queen of spades peel off on the river, and now the early position raiser puts in a pot size bet, I decide to quickly fold here. I feel like they have a lot of king X in their range that connect with the straight. Curious what everyone here thinks. Leave it in the comments. I don't think we're winning there all that often, so I just let my hand go. All right, last hand of the night. This is the big one. Ace king offsuit on the button. Cutoff raises to 15. We decide to call the $15 raise with position. 2 additional callers going to a flop of king 8-9 rainbow. We do connect with top pair, top kicker. Win the cutoff continuation bets here for $20. I think we could be raising some frequency. I decide to just call this $20 continuation bet. I think he would be doing this with his entire range. And we go heads up to a turn, which is the 4 of diamonds, bringing in the backdoor flush draw. Cutoff now decides to continue betting, puts in about a half pot size bet of $50. I think over my options here, value hands that he's repping are pocket 8s, pocket 9s, potentially pocket kings, although we block pocket kings. I decide to go ahead and put in the $50 call. I think we're ahead of a lot of his bluffing range. The 9 of diamonds hits on the river, completing the backdoor flush, pairing the board, and now the cutoff decides to polarize. It puts in a pot size bet of $200 on the river. So his value range, I think, is fairly narrow here. He could have pocket 8s. Pocket 9 seems pretty unlikely. That would give him quads. He could have pocket kings, although we block pocket kings. I think he could potentially have hands like Jack 10, 7-6 that are missed draws that he could be turning into a bluff. potentially lower pairs that he may be turning into a bluff. Would he value bet worse king X hands in this fashion? I don't know the answer to that, but he could have king queen, he could have king jack. He could even be doing this with a hand like king 10, although it's probably pretty unlikely. I think it's pretty close here. We're getting 2-1 on a call, so we need to be right 33% of the time to make this a profitable call. Ultimately, I weigh over my options and I decide that our hand is severely under-repped, and I think the best thing here to do is to call. So after a while of tanking, I do indeed put in the call. I flick in the chips, and he shows us pocket eights. So he boated up there on the river, and we end up losing this $600 pot to end the evening.
All right, so it's 11:15 at night. We're just wrapping up our session. We played for a little over 5 hours. Unfortunately, the downswing continues. We were in the game for 600, out for 243, loss of $350-ish. Put the totals up here like I always do. Not playing my best, and I think I could have folded in some spots where I ended up making the call, and it was costly. I feel like I was too passive pre-flop in a lot of spots where I should have been 3-betting. I feel like I missed some bluff opportunities post-flop where I had equity, and I need to get back into the groove of studying more when I'm not playing at the table. So definitely going to be looking into getting back into some coaching and looking to sign up for some online poker training or something, because I definitely need to get back into the swing of studying certain spots and getting better at certain scenarios, because I feel like I'm just not taking advantage of spots that I should be. So that's that. If you like the vlog, please hit that like button. Please hit the subscribe button. Please share it with family and friends and coworkers and whoever you feel like enjoys poker and poker related content. Want to grow this channel and would love to see us get to 100 subscribers by the end of June, which is a very aggressive goal. It only gives me a little over a month to get there, but we're going to see if we can do it. And that's it. So episode number 5. I will see you in the next episode. Thanks so much for watching, and good luck at the tables.